Today's program features
those of us in this room today and those joining us through the online streaming are very fortunate. We will get a preview of a developing, exciting, new cultural change that combines profitable investing with philanthropy. We are fortunate to have, as Rotarian members in this room, experts that advise us on how to maximize our retirement savings and the returns on investments of the assets of foundations and businesses whom we serve. We may add a few new options to their toolbox today with these presentations. Today you're going to meet and hear from 4 smart, dynamic, young, proven financial investors who have found a way to make the world a better place. You will learn about their organizations and their formulas for getting a competitive return on investment and still at the same time helping others. I will introduce them all and then after that ask each of them to give a brief summary of their organization. Following each of them having done that, we will ask them a couple of questions from the moderator, but we plan to leave plenty of time for questions from our members at the end. Let me first introduce our first panelist, and when I'm going to have her come up. Jennifer, if you would join us, come sitting. Our first panel presentation will be by Jennifer Kinning. She's the CEO and co-founder of Align Impact, an independent and specialized impact investment advisor to families, foundations, and their financial advisors to help define their most important values and desired social outcomes. In addition to describing her organization, we will ask her to give a brief explanation of impact investing. Ms. Kinning is an SMU alumni as well as from my alma mater, UCLA. She lives in Santa Monica and is listed in the current 50 most influential women in private wealth management and listed as the top 40 under 40 investment advisors by Investment News. Now if I can ask Brittany to join us. Thank you. Brittany Miro Underwood is the founder and CEO of the ACOLA Project that empowers women in poverty to become entrepreneurs. She's an SMU graduate. She received the Dallas Mosaic Family Services Human Rights Award in 2017, and she has received SMU's prestigious Emerging Leaders Award. The proceeds from her East African ACOLA jewelry impact business have, among other things, helped to build an orphanage for 180 children and provide 23 water wells. Now if I can invite our third panelist, if you could join us on your seat. Thank you. Kyle Lukianuk is the president of Good Returns that allows businesses to do more and promote sustainable solutions to our world's greatest problems. He is an SMU graduate and has been in the finance world for over 10 years, including time at KPMG. He received the Global Chamber of Dallas Global Game Changer Award in 2017. Our fourth panelist, and if Eva can join us, is Eva Helene Yazhari. She's the CEO and co-founder of Beyond Capital, an impact investment fund reaching 2.3 million people. It provides health care, clean water, sanitation, energy, and agricultural tools in India and East Africa. She's a native of New York with a degree in mathematics from Barnard College. She was previously the vice president of Intrust, a major Wall Street firm. She now lives in Dallas, and she holds regular investment roundtable sessions in Switzerland and in Los Angeles. Recently, she was the featured keynote presenter for the World Forum presented by Skoll. These are our 4 presenters today. I'm going to ask Jennifer to lead off and to talk a little bit about what is in impact investing and then talk about her organization. Jennifer?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. So first, let me describe what we mean by impact investing. Impact investing is when you're seeking both a financial return as well as a social and or environmental return. You could be seeking financial returns that are market rate in nature. You could be seeking concessionary returns because you're looking for an outsized catalytic impact. Or you could seek 0% return. So you're not actually seeking a financial return, but you may be looking for a recycle of capital versus a traditional grant. At the same time, you're looking for a financial return, whether it's 0% concessionary or market rate, you're also seeking to solve a problem socially and or environmentally. So you're looking to track what is the social effect or the environmental effect of this investment, and how does that actually benefit society? The truth is that impact investing is actually very much a personal journey because everyone's in a different place. We have different issue areas we care about. We have different risk-adjusted returns that we need to seek for our portfolios. We have different entities, different levers. We have different stakeholders at the table. And so for everyone, they have to define impact, what they mean by it. Some people may say, I'm an impact first investor, which means they're seeking the social and or environmental return first. And I'm seeking a capital return second. Or you could be a financial first investor with an impact second lens, where you're actually really looking from the financial perspective. You may say, why does this matter? It matters because we face enormous global problems, which I look at as actually opportunities, solutions, opportunities for us as investors, as consumers, as philanthropists. We face problems that would take about $7 trillion to actually solve. If you look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, those goals were set by 168 nations, of which 17 came out of that. Some of them are basic, no hunger. Everyone has access to clean water and sanitation, job creation and empowerment, access to education, partnerships between different stakeholders so that we could actually achieve that. How does this relate back to finance? Because the reality is we're not going to solve those problems if we just rely on government aid and philanthropic capital. And here's why. There's only $390 billion that was given away in 2016. That might sound like a lot of money, but that is a very small amount of money compared to the $7 trillion number. But what you should know about the $390 billion is that the $390 billion is actually 70% of it is given to religious organizations and universities. So that leaves us with $105 billion to tackle our greatest problems. Whereas we have $78 trillion in the capital markets, where money could be used for good, whether it's your 401k, your trust or your foundation or your donor advised fund, or your consumption dollars. So maybe you don't have a lot of wealth, or maybe you do. But the reality is that we're all impact investors. Every investment that we make has impact. And so I'll leave it with that. I think that's a good definition of impact investing. I'd look at it and listen through the lens of an umbrella, a way to look at how you consume, invest, and give to see if you're actually maximizing the various levers that you have. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Align Impact. Prior to that, I spent 13 years advising multiple families, multiple generations, in every facet of their life. In 2008, 2009, I went on this journey with a few of my families. And what we distinguished was that they actually enjoyed being both a philanthropist and an investor in tackling these problems. That there was a part of the impact investing journey that actually spoke to them as a businessman or woman and an entrepreneur. And that there was tremendous opportunity for them to actually deploy capital in a meaningful way. And so what we do at Align Impact is we actually work with families, individuals, foundations, and institutions with their existing advisors to navigate this landscape so that you can use all of your resources to be a force for good without sacrificing return by taking an institutionalized process with the existing solutions that you already have today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brittany.
Brittany, go ahead. Yes, thank you.
So I am the CEO of ACOLA Project. We create transitional work opportunities for women in crisis by designing full impact products for big box retailers from Neiman Marcus to now Walmart. So we're a nonprofit, so 100% of our profits are reinvested in our mission as a nonprofit to transform women so they can care for their families. Started out in 2004, so it's been quite a journey. Actually, when I was at SMU, I was a sophomore. I spent the summer teaching in a school in Uganda and met a woman who was taking street kids into her home. And she had no way to provide for them, had no way to feed them, didn't know when their next meal would be, but just had the heart and the courage to care for them. And so I partnered with her in small ways. It turned into this massive orphanage project. So I moved to Uganda when I graduated in 2006 from SMU, thinking naively I'd be there for 6 months, and 14 years later, I'm still here. And so started building this orphanage. And while we were doing that, just met so many other women in the community who had the same story. They were taking care of street kids and had no way to provide for them. And the more I learned about Uganda and these communities, the more I realized there's got to be a better solution than an orphanage, right? It's so capital intensive. It takes so much to run, and it only helps 180 kids in our case. And so sort of came up with this idea in 2007, if we could just help women like the woman I met generate an income, they could keep these kids in their home and take care of them through their own efforts and hard work, not through charity dollars, through their own work. And so we created ACOLA, which means she works, in their local dialect, and wanted to help women in crisis situations who have no vocational training, no educational background, get the skills that they needed to transform their communities and their families, and just grew and grew. And we expanded to Dallas in 2016 with our launch through Neiman Marcus. We were the first nonprofit to launch through the luxury jewelry space, and we were launched in every single store nationwide. We're still in every door 2 years later at Neiman's, and we're a top 10 jewelry brand, which is pretty exciting considering that all of our profits are reinvested in our mission. And that brought us to Dallas. So we've directly distributed just last year over $500,000 in direct wages to women in our community. So women who are coming out of sexual trafficking, who've been formerly incarcerated, experienced domestic violence, and are not quite ready to get into a workforce development program because they're still being stabilized. They can come to a COLA, earn a flexible living wage income for their family, and we can help place them into the job transition program of their dreams when they're stabilized. So it's been a really exciting journey. We just got a huge account with Walmart, so we're launching that over the holiday, and JCPenney as well. So it's it's been a great journey, and excited to tell you more.
Well, I am the is this on?
Hello? Yes.
So I am the the president. Here, let me just hold this. So I'm the president of Good Returns Network, and I'm so excited that Brittany went before me because it makes my job a lot easier in explaining what we do. But we have a network of 3 key participants, one of which is what we call impact organizations, very similar to ACOLA. And what we do is we provide them with interest-free short-term loans so they can use that capital and grow their mission, scale their model, and create more impact. In order to access that capital, we partner with companies. We found that they were the perfect source of this style of capital, interest-free short-term loans, to provide to organizations exactly like ACOLA. But what we also found is that companies were only willing to do this type of arrangement if we provided 2 things. And one was a financial guarantee on the loan, so the companies wanted to be sure that they were going to be able to get their money back. And the reason why is because in many cases these companies wanted to donate it to a local charity when it came back, or they wanted to recycle it through the program, which created an amazing multiplier effect of impact. The second thing that they really wanted was the ability to tell the story. As you know, Brittany pointed out, and I'm sure as Eva will point out later, there is a huge value to being able to tell the story of what's being done through the companies that participate. And we only know this because we've been operating Good Returns for 4 years now. We've had cycles in the Dominican Republic. We've had loans in India. We've done loans here locally in Texas. We've never had a default. And through that process, we met with organizations and said, what's the most important part of being a part of the Good Returns model? And they said, well, number one is obviously the capital. We really can use this capital to grow, and it's the cheapest source of growth capital as compared to a traditional bank loan, or in some cases donations that they don't come around as quickly as commercial capital. But they said, before you go, there's a second piece that's really important to us, and that's the fact that you share our story through companies that have a built-in platform to tell about the amazing work that we're doing. And I'll just use an example because Sala was up here talking earlier today. The benefit that the organizations receive from Soap Hope's ability to communicate with their tens of thousands of customers across the country about the work that's being done in the Dominican Republic and India, here locally in Texas, to specifically empower women entrepreneurs is a huge benefit. It results in additional donors, additional investors, additional board members, sometimes volunteers. And so we really wanted to build a network that emphasized the power of the story. So to connect the impact organizations to the companies, we had an amazing storytelling channel. But in order to facilitate the guarantee, we saw a huge need to reach out to the impact investing community and to grow and establish a philanthropic arm that was innovative in the way that they gave back, because loan guarantees are not traditional philanthropic impact investment tools, but they are extremely powerful. And so today I hope to tell you a little bit more about that.
Great, thank you.
Eva, you got it?
Sure, of course. So hi, I'm Eva Yazari. I'm the CEO of Beyond Capital Fund. I want to take a step back and tell you a little bit about my journey and how I got here, because it's a bit of a unique combination of working on Wall Street and also somewhat kind of family philanthropy. So in 2009 as well, my husband and I kind of looked at each other amid the crisis and said, why wait to make money and give it away later on? And why not take an approach where we set up an entity now where we can improve lives while using our business skills and drawing in our networks at the same time? And that's how Beyond Capital was born. And so what we do is we invest in companies that are improving the lives of people living under the poverty line. So we fund businesses that are at their very seed stages. We take a very kind of finance-oriented portfolio approach that are working to provide critical goods and services like healthcare, like women's health is a perfect example that we most recently funded in Uganda. We also, in Rwanda, excuse me. We also fund clean water. It's something that we funded in the past, and we're trying to find the right models to fund going forward. We fund access to energy. We fund agriculture tools as well, so for farmers, and we also are looking into financial inclusion right now and leading a deal in Uganda. And so the point is really within India and East Africa to be able to provide access to very well-needed seed capital. Pretty much a year into starting Beyond Capital, we realized that there was just a lack of seed capital. There still is today. There are not enough funders at the table allowing for young entrepreneurs to have the capital they need to grow and scale, very similar to the zero interest loan model that Good Returns has. And so as an impact investor, we also provide additional services because we know that young companies need more than money, and that's why we're called Beyond Capital. And so we provide assistance with financial modeling, helping companies think through the types of money they need to raise afterwards, after the seed round, perhaps in their Series A. We also provide them with pro bono legal support, and we have been able to deploy about $1 million worth of pro bono services into the businesses that we have invested in. So our portfolio is, as Ben mentioned, impacting the lives of 2.3 million people. That's 1.6 million women. And we know that every dollar we invest is impacting the lives of 9 individuals. And in addition to that, we are kind of adding on these services that have a value as well. So for me, this is really my life's work. I was inspired by my grandfather, who started a hospital in Tanzania in the 1950s. He moved his very large family and took all the children with him. And it's been very interesting because I actually didn't realize that was my inspiration until about 3-4 years into the work. I was very hard-nosed about our approach to finding the investments, funding them, and then making sure that they do a really good job to have both social impact and be financially sustainable. But the storytelling piece is, I think, more important than is able to be quantified. And so hopefully we can touch on that a little bit in the discussion.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Do you go by Jen or Jennifer? Either one. Okay, Jen we'll say for now. I saw that in some of the emails. You were talking about working with families. How do individuals and families and foundations define their areas of interest and mission, and then build out an impact strategy to use all those tools that they have to get started on this journey?
Yeah, actually, I'll try to bridge some of what the other panelists have said in my remarks. So, as I said, it's a personal journey. And so a lot of people have to take a step back and look to see where in their life have they been inspired? What's moved them? As Eva said, my personal story is what had me get into this work as well. Right? It's often something we've had to grapple with, something we've seen that stopped us dead in our tracks. Watching a family member get over a disease or be taken from that disease, or just an injustice we see in society, right? So usually there's an area where you think you want to focus, but you're not really sure how to go deep in that area, or how does that area actually overlap. So let's use women. Let's stick with women for a second. And let's use both a domestic, global, and a local issue. So I'm going to use hunger, which is the Sustainable Development Goal number 2. And what people might not recognize is that we actually face major food insecurity in this country. 1 in 5 people in North Texas is living in a food insecure home. Of that, 260,000 children. This sets them up to face major obstacles going forward. 41 million Americans struggle with this. That's 13% of our population. And 795 million people globally don't have access to enough food. How does this tie back to women? Because most of them are single moms. Most of them are struggling to make ends meet. It goes back to job creation and empowerment, letting them provide for their children, creating systems that work. And so we take an area with families and foundations and individuals, and we start to explore that area. What are all the different things that we have? Let's stick with hunger for a second. We have actually 3 different options inside of that. 1 is just getting food to where it needs to go. 2 is access to food and healthy foods that then doesn't create another problem in the healthcare sector, right? How do we get produce that's going to be discarded in one area to another area where it could actually be consumed? We waste 124 billion pounds of food annually in the United States alone. That equates 1 pound of food is 1.2 meals. If we started building systems, which is what families start to work on, and foundations, that allows the access to get to the distribution, to get to the ultimate beneficiary, we would start to make progress. And then you might say, well, how does this tie back to investing? Because some people actually need to invest in other things that tie back to this issue area. For example, if you're looking at hunger and you're not inspired to donate to a charity for the food purposes, you might be inspired, because you're a real estate investor, to focus on affordable housing in Dallas that's going to directly impact those beneficiaries, where you can make an investment return, and ultimately we're going to solve 2 problems at one time, and I would argue 3 problems, which is no poverty on the planet, in addition to many other things. And so part of what we help families and individuals through, and I often recommend this, whether you're an advisor or not, is that you start to develop your own theory of change, your own thesis in 1 or 2 areas that really matter to you. And then once you dive into that, then look across and look at all of your resources. your time, the boards you sit on, your networks, your business skills, as Eva said, your philanthropic capital, your consumption capital, and your investment capital. Because if you used all those levers inside of your theory of change, inside of your issue area, we would actually get somewhere. And imagine if everyone in this room took on one issue area. Collectively, we were working together, but in an area that we were passionate about.
I have a question.
Sure.
Someday I'm going to get old, way in the distant future. And I'm going to want my 401k to sustain me when I reach that distant event. So how can you really achieve market rate returns when investing for impact? If so, give me an example of how that's happened.
Yeah, let me give you 3 very quick examples. One is, has everyone heard of ESG investing, environmental, sustainable, social governance?
No.
Okay, so this is a lens that we add onto our investment process, where we look at companies and how they relate to environmental, social, and governance issues, so that humanity works for all people. 1 in every $5 is invested this way. There's thousands of ESG mutual funds and ETFs that track traditional benchmarks or outperform them that you can invest in the public equities of your 401k. Fixed income, really great example. It's actually the place where I say, if you're, besides the philanthropic dollars and your consumption dollars, if you're going to start anywhere, let's look at fixed income. Here's why. In fixed income, we're looking for a certain yield, credit quality, duration for the investment. Then we're looking to say, does that meet what I need from a financial objective, especially in the 401k or the IRA situation? But you could take 2 more lenses on that. One is, who's the issuer of this bond or this mutual fund that's a collection of bonds? And what are the proceeds used for? You can just as easily get the same return, but actually start to understand where your proceeds are being invested. So rather than building prisons, let's start building charter schools and affordable healthcare facilities. And then the last example is just to touch back again on the real estate. You can actually get the same risk-adjusted return, but you have to make a conscious choice that instead of investing in Class A commercial high-rise properties or parking lots or warehouses for commercialization or the wealthy, you actually have to say, I'm going to invest in Class B and C properties for low and middle income, which is more than 50% of the United States. And you're going to have the same rents. It's just most people don't understand what's actually happening underneath. So you can get market rate returns in all asset classes, but you have to take the same level of due diligence that you do in building out your traditional portfolio.
Thank you very much. I have one last comment. In looking at your materials and reading some of your comments, I read that a statistic that 78% of widows change their financial investment person after their husband dies. I looked at my wife and I said, that's accurate?
Yeah, it's 78% might be low. Yeah, here's why. Because the advisors aren't looking at them while the husband's alive. Women outlive their husbands by 9 years, on average. Women will inherit the wealth long before the millennials or the next gen inherit the wealth. Women invest in their communities. Women invest in other women. Women invest at home and globally because we understand how it's all interconnected. We make 80% of the consumption decisions. That drives corporate revenue. And we have $41 trillion of purchasing power right now. So if women alone just took this on, we would have a huge shift in capital towards furthering society.
Thank you. Brittany, how has impact investing supported the enhancement of a COLA in your jewelry business and social impact? And can you share a specific example of a positive experience that your organization has had with impact investing?
Yeah, so I'll go back to our launch through Neiman Marcus. So we had built sort of this vertical brand that was under a nonprofit structure, a very non-traditional structure for growth. We can't give out equity. So do the math. It was like, great, we're launching through a luxury retailer in every store, and we have very limited access to capital. The challenge with donations is it would have taken us 2 years to raise the money that we needed in 3 weeks to say yes to this every store account that just last year put over $500,000 into the hands of some of our most at-risk women in Dallas, and allowed them to meet the needs of their family without charity dollars. And so, I mean, this huge, we've got to have the money to not only finance this product line immediately, but we also need talent. We need people quick. I mean, we are growing. We were selling in 400 boutiques around the country, and then suddenly we're launching through a major luxury retailer, competing with some of the biggest brands in the world as a nonprofit without that infrastructure. And so we needed talent. We needed, product financing. And so I will give it to Northern Trust. I mean, there had to be one group that took the risk. For all they knew, we were a nonprofit and we were just going to tank our first season, right? There's not been a nonprofit for that reason that has retailed at that level before. And so we worked with Northern Trust and Debbie Casemeyer, who's now on our board, who's just incredible innovator. She's been working on impact investing for 30 years before it was even a thing, and got connected to Debbie and said, hey, I know this is a huge risk for Northern Trust, but we need $1 million and we need it in about 3 weeks. So we're going to have to say no to this major retailer. But here's what we can do if this works, right? A big if for everyone, because the designs may not have sold. We could have had, the quality may not have been right, which we knew it would be. They didn't. And, it may not have worked. And they did it out of the Community Reinvestment Act, kind of that funding that they needed to distribute, which has been a huge tool for us, kind of that CRA for different banks. We exist probably because of that, to be honest. And our model that's so different and unique exists because of that tool. So did it out of that, did the growth capital. And again, we became a top 10 jewelry brand in our first season. Took the risk, it worked. And then suddenly we were in a new place where we were like, great, now we have incredible opportunities from all these other retailers. And again, we can only grow through debt. We'd love to grow through donations, but we need it so fast, and we don't know when these retail accounts are going to come, and it takes a long time to cultivate those relationships so we kind of created this unique hybrid structure within our nonprofit framework. Again, we have no for-profit subsidiary. And I had one group that said they'd give us $10 million if we would take a part of this for-profit. And that was never our goal. That was never our mission. And trust me, I would have made quite a bit of money if we did take it for-profit. And I don't own a cola. I built it for 15 years. It's a nonprofit. I don't own it. I'll never have an exit. It's a huge sacrifice on my part, but I knew this was always about that woman that I worked with for 7 years on the ground in Uganda, who needed a dollar a day to feed her kids, and we're working for her, and I wanted all of the profits to go back. And so we knew, and I knew at that very moment, I could be risking the livelihood of our organization. If we don't get the capital, we stop growing and we die. We're on that growth trajectory, which I learned from this former CFO of Neiman Marcus. 80% of brands die in the place that we were at, and we're a nonprofit. So, I mean, gosh, we just, to add to the challenges, to get up that hill, to get to the other retailers quick, because you have a window for growth and, again, non-traditional framework. So after Northern Trust invested, we had some other great social finance groups, RSF Social Finance. We had the Dallas Development Fund through their Emerging Tax Credit Program. They did an investment. They just did another one last week. They did a forgivable loan, which is amazing. Northern Trust, their interest rate was 0.07%, which is crazy, and obviously nobody can match that. But we go up to 6%. Yeah, no, good returns can. That's true. 0. That's true. Good point. But the more capital that we can keep in the organization, the better, because it goes to women who are desperately trying to care for their kids. And so we kind of lined up all of these different impact investors who, again, anything from 0%, we're hoping to work with good returns, to 6% is the highest we'll probably go. But we need capital and we need it quick. And so we just landed accounts with Walmart and JCPenney. So this is, 2 years from the time we launched through Neiman Marcus. And we're, other than Amazon, Walmart's the biggest retailer in the world. They've never carried a nonprofit jewelry brand, and they're excited to, I mean, there's 4,000 stores, so it could be an incredible impact for our women. But here we are again at that place where it's like, gosh, we're going to have to say no to an opportunity we're never going to get again unless we get the financing. And we can't give out equity. We can only do this through debt. Nonprofits generally don't take on debt, so then we also have a high debt load for a nonprofit. So we started kind of getting creative and had developers donate land assets so we could kind of make our sort of assets higher than our liabilities and take on debt to grow. And it's just been phenomenal. So without the use, because sort of without this movement, this impact investing movement, all of these new tools like Good Returns and Beyond Capital, we wouldn't have been able to do what we've done. So it's that important. I think, again, think about if you have a family foundation and you're granting out your 5% every year. How are you using your 95%, right? What investments? And can you take some at 6%, knowing that those have, great, just as high of an impact as your grant dollars do, and be able to have an impact throughout your entire portfolio. So, and we're excited and thankful for groups like that, because we would not have, again, done what we did without it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kyle, can you give examples of impact organizations and how the loan capital input, how that affects them?
Sure. Well, I think Brittany's a great example, again, kind of piggybacking off of her. Being able to use the capital to do basic business functions, buying inventory, hiring more women to put more of their products out the door. When a big retailer like Walmart comes in, they're not paying a lot of capital up front. So, and there's a lot of resource that needs to come in up front. But it's all 100% targeted at the mission of the organization. And I mentioned Nicole is a great example. We've worked with an organization in the Dominican Republic for a while now that's very much aligned with what you guys are doing at Rotary, which is providing microloans to women. And so in addition to that capital, as Eva alluded to, they're also providing health services, social support, savings groups, business training, so that they can actually be successful with the capital that they have. But when they're lending out that capital, in order to gain that capital, they have to build relationships with donors or with traditional commercial sources of growth capital. And so our type of capital can instantly be loaned out to these women in the Dominican Republic. Their average loan term is 6 months, and the average loan size is about $350. So even a short-term loan of $20,000 has a huge impact that creates a ripple effect through entire communities within the Dominican Republic. And after that loan is repaid in 6 months, they're happy to repay our loan. And the money that they gained from an interest rate, if they charge the woman an interest rate, they get to put that right back out into the community in the form of another loan. And so there's a cycle effect that continues to grow, and it allows them to have more resources. When Acola honors a contract and gets capital in the door, they're happy to repay us our loan, and they get to use the surplus of capital and pour it right back into the social programming that they're doing. So we see more and more of these organizations popping up, and some of them don't even realize that they're impact organizations. And we're happy to come in and say, you guys shouldn't be struggling to find growth capital to do the good in the world that you're meant to do. And we see companies as being a perfect source to provide that, because as Jen mentioned, we have companies declaring record-setting profits, and they want to attach themselves to a story and to something that means something, because it's driving their financial bottom line to attract top talent, to engage employees, and to build customer and brand awareness in their environment.
Thank you. Eva, your portfolio includes companies and organizations putting grassroots efforts towards helping communities and people across the globe, including Kasha, the Rwandan-based women's health company. What makes Beyond Capital excited about investing in a company? How do you choose your companies?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we're a social impact first investor. So we're really looking always first at the social criteria. Is the company improving lives of people living under the poverty line? And then we get pretty hard-nosed from there on the financial side. It's just a function of my background and my team's background, and also our belief that we breed sustainability among social enterprises by asking them to perform like any other company. But maybe I'll give an example. So we invested into a women's health company in Rwanda last fall. It's a business that distributes women's health products, contraceptives, feminine sanitation, and does it in a culturally sensitive way, because for women in East Africa, your health is a taboo. And the business could have very easily operated as a nonprofit, like straight nonprofit, accepting donations. But they realized that there was a market opportunity, that women were paying for these products anyway, and they just needed to figure out how to get them to the women who need them in, let's say, a very rural area, or even in a city that's in an office somewhere, and do it in a culturally sensitive way so that it comes in a package that's completely discreet, and the woman feels like basically dignified receiving her package. At the same time, they're very careful about not being branded as a women's health company. And what that means is they also sell soaps, lotions, other products that a woman would buy first, and then she will have her repeat orders month after month. And so for us, just kind of looking at Kasha as an example, we really felt that they were solving a complex, extremely complex issue, but in an elegant way. So basically, it's not even a model where a person walks into a store. Even someone with the old style short SMS phones, where you could just kind of, do 3 letters on one button, can order their products from Kasha. And others that have smartphones can also order their products. So it's an online platform for the ordering, and then there is a feedback loop and an after-sales service, and women can call and in some cases tell the stories of why they need the products. Maybe they were raped, or maybe they can't talk to their mother about their health because it's not a topic that is acceptable in their household. And so it also opens up a channel for women to have access to services beyond just the goods that Kasha provides. But I think at the end of the day, the social impact criteria extends to also being an investor in people. I think everything we do is about investing in people and getting to know the people that are involved in our work. I think that's why we're all sitting here. And so we look for entrepreneurs that are committed to their work, and very, very almost passion. It's really a passion for them to solve the problems that they're solving, and are also entrepreneurial. And so I'll just finish up in an article, in a Q&A on a recent article that I did, I gave 4 top tips for impact investors. One of them was absolutely that we are investing in people. The other is to invest in companies that are sustainable and well-meaning at the same time. So to really look past the mission, and then, for instance, in the case of Acola, know that that company or the social enterprise is sustainable. The other is to invest together, because we all bring something different to the table. At Beyond Capital, we're bringing legal services, or we're bringing financial modeling assistance, and perhaps at Good Returns, they're bringing something completely different, like a zero interest loan, which sounds fabulous. And then lastly, it is to be active in your impact investing to the extent possible. If you're investing in ESG or publicly listed companies, it's a little bit more difficult to be active. But when investing directly into a business, and this is something that we hold very true to us, being active really helps you get the most out of your investment.
Thank you.
Ben, can I add? I'd love to tie it back to strategy and why it's important. So maybe in your development of your thesis, you might say, I want to invest in early stage companies, but I don't want to be the person on the ground in Uganda or Rwanda or Kenya sourcing and vetting the people. That would be a reason why you would use some of your 5% capital to invest in Beyond Capital, so that they're actually your eyes and ears and a resource and a bridge, so you actually can invest in those companies at an early stage where we're missing that critical capital. You may then, in a later stage round, a Series A or Series B, invest and do full due diligence through another piece of your portfolio, or maybe the 95% of your foundation portfolio. And then in the case of Brittany, because this is super important and most people don't think about this, is that when Brittany needs the money in 3 weeks, we as investors and philanthropists do not have time to figure out if we actually want to be a lender, and to vet Brittany, and to do all the things we have to do in order to make that investment. We have to decide that we actually want to loan capital somewhere between 0 and 6% to these types of businesses for these purposes, to unlock other capital and to have it be super catalytic well before Brittany comes into our sphere. When Brittany comes into our sphere, then we can get to work to try to meet her deadline and our deadline in deploying the capital in a smart and efficient manner.
Thank you. We have now time for questions from our audience. If anybody who has a question. Yes, sir, right back in the back.
What is the average size of the, like for instance, you said there were 500,000 went out to women here in Dallas. What was the largest sum distributed, and what was the average sum distributed?
The question was, what was the largest sum distributed and the average sum distributed? Is that
To
right?
women in Dallas.
Yes.
Specifically our women, yeah. So we have women who've made $40,000 a year through a COLA without having an educational background in most cases and coming out of prison the year before, which is amazing. And then we have women who've come through our program during an 80-day program with Salvation Army through their domestic violence unit who just needed to earn an income during that time in a flexible way where they can show up one day, not show up the next, figure out their kids, but they had to earn income during that. And they've come for 80 days and made $13 to $15 an hour and left and on to the next thing. And so we really want to be here and be available for the women that don't have another option for work. So they can't go to the job transition program for Omni Hotel because they haven't figured out a bunch of stuff yet. They're still in crisis, and most workforce development programs only accept women who are stable. So the women in crisis are going back to poverty, back to prostitution, back to jail because there's nothing like what we're doing in this city. So it's been pretty phenomenal to realize there really is a huge gap. And I think our model, which has the possibility of being completely self-sustaining, can fill the gap as long as we have tools like the impact investment tool to grow it. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, if I have a client, and I do, who has a donor advised fund, who's interested in doing these sorts of things, what do I need to tell them? How do they get started?
How do we tell a client, a donor advised fund in this case, how to find you?
Right? And what can they do through these organizations? Are there restrictions on donor advised funds, or are they able to access the full amount?
We've accepted
Let me just a question. Are there restrictions on donor advised funds?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
We've accepted capital from donor advised funds. And actually, I would honestly say Good Returns is such a great model for that because what's so fun about Good Returns is you could give the capital through Good Returns. It could go to a COLA. You get the guarantee, right, which is huge for everyone. They've already vetted us, so it could be really quick, right? So they don't have to go through that whole underwriting process again, versus if they just did it directly to a COLA or an organization like ours. Like you said, it could take months, or like Beyond Capital, same thing. That's the benefit of working through these groups and not going directly to the organization. And that's the benefit for us because it can be really fast because they've already done the diligence. And then there's the wonderful thing, if they want to do 0%, there's that guarantee. And then there's the real chance over here with Beyond Capital to make significant returns as well. So I'm going to pass it to Kyle.
Yes. So one of the things that our team does is we don't make anything new. And that's not just us being lazy, but what we do is we try to bring pieces together that already exist and are already functioning and bring them together in a way that creates a unique synergy. In this case, that creates social impact. And so you brought up the DAF, so I'll talk about that. For our guarantee side, what we did is we took a different approach from what Jen was talking about and said people already have their 401ks, they already have their investments, and they kind of like where they are. Is there a way that we could use what they're already invested in and leverage it in a way that creates impact? And what we found is that the loan guarantee does exactly that. So we actually started building our own framework for doing this, and we call it very cleverly a GIVES account. It's a guarantee investment value strategy account, and it allows impact investors to leave their capital in whatever they want to leave it in, or they can put it in a fund that we are building that is ESG aligned, but it gets used as collateral for loan guarantee. And so you get to have this impact, or a DAF gets to have this impact without actually having to move capital. in the short term. And so you get to generate your market level of return. You provide a guarantee based on a risk tolerance that you've established as an investor. And at the end of the year, if there's any call on the guarantee, it gets shared proportionately across all guarantors. So you actually, even though you put up a certain amount of capital, the effective amount that you may owe is probably way, way less. And so you get huge leverage on your capital in that instance. And for someone who has a DAF, it's great for a foundation because they get to keep that money under their control and get invested into the market based on their strategy, but it's still doing good, in this case, through good returns and the impact loans that we're creating.
I'm sure that after the meeting, if any of you have additional questions, that the panelists would be glad to answer those. We're going to ask you to stay here for one moment, as our president would like to thank you. But let's thank all of them for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
In appreciation and recognition of what you all have presented today, which I think is just absolutely awesome, we've made a donation to a longtime Rotary International and Rotary Club of Dallas initiative for sanitation and clean water. And we do it in Ghana, Africa, as well as dental hygiene, which they have very little of there. And this will forever, ever impact very positively lives there. So,
Thank you.
I got to get it right.
Thank you very much. That's very sweet.
That is wonderful.
Hi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much. This is very
right.
impressive.
Thank you to everybody here.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Thanks. Great. Give you my mic. Should I give you my mic? You did not done.
So our next week's meeting is actually going to be a social event, so we can just get around tables together, drink wine, and break bread and enjoy each other's company. Jim Frankowitz, you hop up here real quick.
Yeah, just very quickly, we recently had a Rotary Uncorked event, and I know that a lot of you sponsored potential members to come to that event. What we need you to do is follow up with them so that we get their applications in and get things processed. Especially, we want to do that before the end of the month because we do have a processing fee as a part of our membership billing process, and that's been cut in half through the end of the month. So if you can get back with those people who were there, and also keep bringing guests. I noticed that several people brought guests today. Great. Introduce them to this great club and these great ideas that are shared by others in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For those of you who have not registered yet, I've only been talking about this for a month, so we know Rotarians always wait to the last minute for everything. Please go to the district website and sign up for the installation of our very own Bill Slicker, who will be the next district governor. Also, another district event, Friday of this week, they will be having a joint meeting of all the clubs in the district to celebrate 30 years of women in Rotary. So again, you can go to the event, go to that event on the district website. They stole the idea from us. We started the year this way, by the way. Also, there's a great opportunity for some basic leadership training coming up, as you can see here on the 16th. So again, shock, go to the district website and sign up for this. I think that those of us who have been through district leadership training have found it to be very valuable, both in our jobs as well as being future leaders of our clubs. And last but not least, there will be a Rotary Club of Dallas board meeting immediately following. So if the board members will please talk little and walk much, we'll go ahead and get started as early as possible. So for our guests and Rotarians here, as well as those who are watching us live, thank you very much for attending the meeting today. Now, if Will you please rise? And we will recite the four-way test, the things that we wish all people lived in their lives. The things that we think, do, and say. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And number 5, near and dear to the hearts of the Rotarians of the Rotary Club of Dallas, is it fun? We are adjourned.